Welcome to the webinar presented by Chief Inspiration Officer of Equality Pioneers, Ishreen Bradley, who will be touching upon how to maintain and grow your impact at work in the current virtual reality. Ishreen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. And particularly thank you to those of you who are joining the webinar when the weather outside is so amazing. But we're going to have an even better time here. So let me start by sharing what we're going to cover on this webinar. Today we're going to look at three things. We're going to first of all look at the top 5 barriers that female leaders have had to deal with in the traditional world of work, so prior to lockdown. We're then going to explore the top 5 that are showing up in the current reality. We've been doing some research and collating the kinds of challenges that people are facing right now in being in lockdown, and we're going to look at some of those. And we're going to wrap up by looking at, well, do you know what? When things start to open up and change, what are we going to have to think about then? Because it won't be the world that we've come from. So those are the 3 things we're going to spend some time on today. And how we're going to do that is I'm going to share very quickly with you the key barriers, and then we're going to do a little poll. So I'll show you later how to do that. I'm going to do a little poll to look at what is it that you're dealing with as a barrier, and then we'll have a conversation about it, and I'll give you some tips of how to deal with the top barriers. Before we get into that, I'd like to let you know a little bit about myself. So I'm Ishreen Bradley, and I guide professional leaders to navigate complex situations with clarity and confidence. And that's what I'm passionate about doing. And I'm blessed to be able to do that every day of my working life. I've researched and written a book that's called Authentic You, Women Win at Work. And that was based on research with over 1,000 women who had to overcome challenges in order to be successful. And it shares the challenges they faced and how they achieved success. And my current passion, so this is what I find myself doing a lot of right now, is to work with individuals and within organizational systems to cultivate mindsets and cultures that increase belonging. So I get to work with C-suite leaders and senior leaders from around the world to develop effective strategies for increasing a sense of belonging and inclusion at work. And I facilitate them in planning, engaging people, and implementing belonging-based solutions. And the ultimate outcome of that is that we all experience psychological safety. We feel a connection to each other and to our organizations, and we get to express our value and be valued, and the organization gets to grow value. So that's what I love contributing to the world. I've come to that through a circuitous route. I trained initially and practiced as an electronics engineer in telecoms in the whole online media world. And through that process, I got really interested in organizations and business. And so then I did my MBA at London Business School. And much further down in my career, I became even more interested in people and what makes people perform. And so I did a master's in executive coaching with Ashridge Hart. So with that kind of potpourri of experiences, practical and academic, what you get here is the kind of logical, woo-woo, caring, systematized consultant. Okay, so I kind of, there's a little, I believe in the head, heart, and soul and spirit. So listen, that's enough about me for now. Let's do a quick check-in. So here you'll see 15 pictures. Now, here's what we want to do with that. These are challenging times. We're all dealing with things that we've not experienced before to a greater or lesser extent. So let's start here by appreciating where we're all at. What I'd like you to do here is look at these pictures and pick one image that most reflects what you're dealing with in your current state of mind. So just take a moment to look at those pictures. There are 15 images there, and zone in on one that reflects your current state of mind. And what I'd like you to do when you've chosen that is you'll see there are some numbers against each picture. So if you could please, in the chat box, just type in the number that represents the image that most reflects your current state of mind. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. See what numbers are coming up here. A 13, a 1, a 7. Jordan, you might be getting some others. So perhaps, Jordan, if you could look at what's here and what you're getting, and just let me know which numbers seem to be most popular, or are we getting a big mix of numbers there?
So far we have one selection on image 1. So the ones with one selection, we've got image 1, 7, 8, 9, and 12, and then image 13 has 2.
Okay.
Selected that. So image 13, yeah, has been meant
more than once. Okay, that's interesting. So all of you who picked a number, what would be great is if you could just say a little bit in the chat about why you picked that image. What was it that made you choose that image, and how are you managing yourself through this state right now? Just type something in the chat box. You can type it to everyone, or you can type it privately to Maddox Events, and Jordan will share those with us anonymously. Yeah, so if you chose number 13, for example, what was it that made you choose an image of a tree in a desert?
So we've had one comment come in so far, which was in relation to actually picture 10, which the attendee has said it reflects how I sit in front of the window gazing outside at the outside world. And then it's continued saying, I spend approximately 7.5 hours a day like this.
Wow. Got it. Thank you. Thank you to those of you who shared there. So now let's get into the content. So what are the 5 key barriers that my research has shown people have faced pre-lockdown? Okay, so the first thing that they're dealing with, or were dealing with, was managing impact and presence. Okay, how you come across and how others perceive you. Number 2 is having a clear vision and plan for your future. Number 3 is overcoming the imposter syndrome that many of us face. Number 4 is communicating a clear value proposition. And number 5 is dealing with challenging situations, whether that be people or politics or having a work-life balance, all of which can be very challenging. So those are the 5 top challenges in the traditional world. So I'm going to ask you a question now. There's a poll on your screen, right? So these are the 5 challenges. What I'd like you to do now is take a moment to reflect on which of those 5 have been your biggest challenge, either in the past or even now. Which of those 5 have been your biggest challenge? All right? And in a moment, I'm going to take you to a poll. So what you want to do is, if you've got your mobile phones out, you can either scan the QR code into your phone camera or go to www.menti.com and type in the code 805449. I'll come back to that screen and give it to you, and then you'll see a screen like this with the question and the 5 or 6 answers there, right? 5 answers plus other, and you can pick up to 2. All right. So if you could please do this now, go to menti.com and type in the code, or use the QR code, and I will get us onto the website so we can have a look at it. Wow. Isn't that interesting? So the biggest challenge that most of us are facing, so there are a few more coming through, a few more responses. We've had 5 so far. See where it comes out. Okay, looks like the biggest challenge we're having right now is having a clear vision and plan for my future. So that's based on the traditional challenges, right? And then close after that is articulating a clear value proposition to my stakeholders. So those are the challenges that we have been facing for some time now, and maybe still are. So let me ask you, what are some of the ways in which you've been managing those challenges? So let's start with vision and plan for your future. How are you starting to deal with that? And if you can type that in the chat, and Jordan, if you wouldn't mind just reading those out to us, that way we can make sure it all stays anonymous. But how are you dealing with wanting to have a clear vision and plan for your future right now? Or are you just, you might be not, right? You might be just focusing right now on the short term.
Nothing has come in just yet.
No? Okay.
Obviously, attendees, just feel free to type away in the chat box, answering Ishreen's question.
That's fine. There's no compulsion. So let me give you some of the ways in which I've worked with clients to start having a clear vision for their future. So the first thing is you've got to deal with what gets in the way, because a lot of people try to create a vision or a plan based on where they're at today, and they try to do it with a lot of clutter in the way. You know, it's kind of like if you're trying to revamp your wardrobe, for example, you want to get rid of the things that no longer fit and that you don't like anymore, that don't represent who you are now. A lot of people just keep those things in their wardrobe and then buy new clothes, right? And that reduces clarity. So what you want to do first is clear all that clutter out. So I don't know what you're dealing with, if it's imposter syndrome. Some of you here have said that imposter syndrome has been a challenge. You know, there are things we tell ourselves that get in the way. So the first thing to do is to clear all of that out of the way, and then to start using creativity. Use your imagination. Don't sit there and try to write your vision out. It works for some people, but generally you want to try and use a mixture of media. So you might want to collage it, have some music in the background, select music that represents who you are and where you want to be and what your future looks like. And then once you've done all that, really create for yourself a breakthrough goal. So what I mean by a breakthrough goal is beyond what you would normally do. It represents the vision that you're looking to accomplish, and it's really beyond even a stretch goal. You know, what I call a stretch goal is something that you know how to do, you just haven't done it yet, right? So things like losing weight is the obvious example, right? You know what you need to do. You need to change your diet, you need to change your exercise regime, and you'll either lose or gain weight, right? That's a stretch goal. It's still challenging, it's still scary, you know, it takes something, but you know what to do. And then you get, even beyond that, you get a dream goal, right? Your dream goal is what gets you up in the morning, it's what makes your heart flutter, it's very exciting. And your dream goal is great, but if you were to go to your manager or to your bank manager and ask for a loan or time and budget to work on that dream goal, they wouldn't give it to you. So what I'm talking about here is have a breakthrough goal that is between a stretch, as in trying to lose weight, but less than trying to fly to the moon, okay? So somewhere in between, there's something that gives you a flutter. It's still big, hairy, and audacious, but right now, right here, right now, you've got no idea how you're going to accomplish that goal. That's a breakthrough goal. From there, you can create a plan for your future. So they're just a few tips that I have for you to take away and put into practice. Okay, so now let's move on. Let's look at the biggest. Okay, I didn't want to go there. Here we go. Let's move on and let's look at what we're dealing with now. Okay, so what are the top 5 current reality barriers that people are working with and having to manage? And the first of those is really your energy, maintaining your energy. And when I talk about energy, I'm not talking about how much physical energy you have alone. Of course, you need to keep your physical energy going. It's great to do some of these virtual classes that are coming online now and do whatever it is that makes your body strong, your diet, your exercise regime, your breathing, all of that is really essential. But energy goes beyond that. There's energy, the energy of your mind. So where your thinking gets in the way, where your surroundings get in the way and they impact your mind and you start telling yourself things that aren't very helpful. So you want to find ways and strategies of practicing something like mindfulness so that your mind is clear and ready to take on whatever there is for you to face and keep you motivated and going. And finally, there's spirit. So there's your heart, whatever your heart needs to be successful. Okay, so when we talk about energy, we're talking about all of those things. The second biggest challenge is maintaining. Yes, there's an echo, isn't there?
No, we can't see your presentation slides at the moment.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's because I've got to share the. Thank you for that. Can you see them now?
Yes, all good.
Great, great. So the bulb on the left was the energy. So maintaining your mind, body, and spirit energy in a positive frame to keep you fueled to take on whatever there is to take on. The second challenge on the top right is maintaining your self-belief and confidence. You know, when you're alone or when you're alone with your head or when you're alone with your family at home, you start telling yourself things generally that might take you down a negative tunnel where there's no cheese. Okay, so you want to really look at how do you maintain your self-belief and confidence. There's a really great example of doing that when you're at home with your family, right? And there are culturally appropriate versions for all of you, but I don't know if you're familiar with a lady called Indra Nooyi. Indra Nooyi was the chief executive officer of PepsiCo, and she would run this massive firm, global company, and people would behave with her exactly as any other chief executive would, exactly as they would with any other chief executive. But when she went home, her mother-in-law would basically expect her to cook and go to the shops to buy a pint of milk, however late at night it was. And she had to deal with that, and she did, right? So you want to look at what are those kinds of conversations that you need to deal with your family in order to really increase your self-belief and maintain your motivation and confidence. The third challenge is maintaining your visibility when your key stakeholders can't see you. So I'm working currently with an accounting firm, and they've got managers who are introverts who had trouble communicating and managing their team members, even in a face-to-face world. And when they are now in lockdown and working from home, they've gone even deeper into themselves, and you hardly see them. And these are people who are managing teams of 40, 50 people, and they have to be able to come out and communicate. So that's a big challenge when you're either alone at home or at home with other priorities that clash. And we all have juggling, don't we? The difference is in lockdown, juggling just became faster. There are more objects. There are more things to do. In the traditional world, when you go to work, you can more or less leave home at home. There are things you need to deal with, but it's a new environment. You know that's where you're working. And that means you just juggle a few things. But when you're at home working, you're basically juggling everything you would normally juggle at home as well as what you have to juggle at work. So that makes that number 4. And number 5 is contracting. This is contracting for working from home. Okay, so either with your family, so you need to have certain contracts with your family when you're 24/7 together, right? So you need to be careful to set boundaries. You need to manage children if you have children, and you need to let them know that when you're on a meeting, you're on a meeting. And even if you're on your own, you've got the phone calls and the expectations of family members who might not be with you. So all that needs to be contracted for, and they need to know that just because you're at home at certain times doesn't mean you're not working, and there are times when you need to work. So you need to set those boundaries. And other the other place you need to contract with are with your colleagues and your clients. And here you basically need to manage when you get interrupted, because it's inevitable that you do. Certain things are outside of your own home boundaries. For example, I've got a family with young children next door, and of course they want to come out and play in the garden on a sunny day. I'm not going to go and tell them not to. I can't set contracts with them in the same way I can with the people in my home. So you need to let people know, do you know, I'm working from home, we might get interruptions. So those are the 5 current reality challenges. And similarly now, I'd like you to pick 1 or 2 of those that you're facing as a key challenge. And I'm going to then take you to the polls. It's exactly the same code. And the question's going to look like that. And you're going to be asked to pick 1 or 2. Let me share that with you now. So that's the question. Out of those 5, what's the biggest challenge you're facing now? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to call the poll at this point. The biggest challenge seems to be self-belief and confidence while working virtually. It is really a difficult thing to deal with. And some of the things that you want to look at, if that's something you're dealing with right now, is really to look at your imposter syndrome and what gets in the way of your success. And towards the end of this webinar, I'm going to share with you a little quiz that you can take to help you identify your imposter syndrome and how to overcome that. That's the first thing when it comes to self-belief and confidence, because you're always afraid that you're going to be found out, or you're afraid you're not good enough, right? So do that quiz and you'll get some ideas from that. The second is really to focus on what's important to you. What are your values? What's your passion? And think of your work and what there is for you to do from that place. What are your skills? What are you outstanding at? And the third tip there is exactly that, right? Acknowledgement. Look at what you've accomplished. You're all very accomplished people, I'm sure, on this call. You wouldn't be in this forum if you weren't. But you don't take the time maybe to look at that. Look at what you're really good at, and maybe take an exercise like every day acknowledge at least one thing that you've done really well and that you're going to take into the future. Okay, and then I noticed that there are another couple on there that are fairly high scoring. So maintaining your energy. Maintaining your energy is really about boundarying your time at work. It's about making sure you get your exercise done and taking time to relax, making sure that at least for 1 hour a day you relax and you take time to reflect on what really matters for you and what lights you up. And then managing your time in a productive way, well, that's all about looking at the systems and processes and what you have in place for doing your work every day and managing everything at home every day and batching it. So maybe fix a certain amount of time and know the hours that you're going to work and work those hours. Now, for some of you, that might be challenging because you might have global calls that you have to make, and that's fine. You just organize yourself ahead for that to happen. And at the same time, plan for the unexpected, right? That could be from people, children's parents, that could be from things that happen in the house that when you're at work you wouldn't know about, but when you're at home you have to deal with. So plan for the unexpected. Give yourself some time every day just in your diary for when things that you don't know will happen just happen, and learn to say no with ease and grace. One of the biggest things that I face, especially with female leaders, is that they struggle to say no. They literally can't say no. So figure out how you can do that and just start by practicing saying no to things that aren't core to what's on your plate. Okay, and just even say it'll be difficult for some of you at the beginning, but just see if you can do that. Just start practicing that into your routine. All right, well, I hope those are some useful tips for you. I'm going to now go back to the presentation. There you go. Can you all see the PowerPoint now?
Yes, we're on the PowerPoint.
Lovely, lovely. So now let's look at what's coming up. All right, what are we going to have to deal with as we come out of this lockdown stage? So the first thing here is that there's going to be a shift from productivity, efficiency, and speed, and just getting things done, to resilience and integrity. What do I mean by that? Well, you know, a lot of people, a lot of organizations, the chief execs I'm talking to at the moment, they're talking about they really hope they won't have to, but they might have to make people redundant. And who are they going to choose? The people who aren't resilient, right? They want people who are going to keep going in any difficult situation. And this is one of the hardest situations that any of us at work have had to face. So resilience is a key factor in future success. So you want to look at how can you build your resilience? How can you build that muscle in dealing with keeping on going in the face of no agreement, in the face of when things don't go how you want, in the face of being stuck 24/7 at home, near enough. And integrity is the other thing. So that's about who does what they say they will do, does it on time, and who meets and exceeds expectations in terms of quality. Who can I rely on when things are not being monitored so much, when I'm not watching over them? That's the top thing that people are going to want in the post-lockdown world. The other thing that's quite interesting is that we now seem to be able to get things done very quickly. And in the post-COVID world, we're going to start questioning bureaucracy. You know, we're building hospitals in 10 days and having them operational in record time. Businesses are surviving with whole departments working online, and drugs are getting approved in weeks. And you will have heard today that there's so much funding being given to Imperial and Oxford universities to develop these drugs to help us to move beyond this situation. And what that's going to do post-COVID is a lot of bureaucracy is going to be revealed for what it is. It's like, do drug companies really need 20 years to get a drug out? Or is it just a way of protecting the patent? So there's going to be a bonfire of red tape, we reckon. The third opportunity is for greater equality. So there's much more chance for flexible working and an equal level playing field for flexible working, because everybody's having to do it. It's not just the mothers the new mothers who have to do it, or the people who have caring responsibilities, or other circumstances that need to work from home. Um, oh, there's a bit of a noise in the background. Okay, it stopped. Good. So there's more scope for flexibility. And a chief exec I was talking to the other day, a senior partner who's running a big global firm, was basically saying, actually, do you know what? So long as they get the job done, we trust them with how they spend their time. And people are working at all sorts of different times. And his concern is for their mental health at the moment. It's about presenteeism, right? So, so that's one of the challenges that organizations are really taking seriously. But what they've noticed is sick leave is going through the floor. There's hardly any sick leave because people are resting when they need to rest, and they're working when they're well enough, and the job's still getting done. All right? So that's a great opportunity for anybody who either is restricted because of their life circumstances or even because of their physical ability, right? So, you know, people who have to use wheelchairs, or who have hard of hearing, or have visual challenges, there's technology in place that will enable them to really play on a level playing field post-COVID. And then our favorite thing, working from home versus working in the office. So what's happening now is employers are realizing that this can actually work at scale. And they're considering the benefits, right? Less travel time, less international travel, less cost, right? So lower real estate costs. So as leases are coming up for renewal, they're looking at, can we reduce the space so that we move to a 2 days a week in the office working model? They're saving on rent, and that's a benefit for them as well as for the individual employees, who are actually, some of them, a lot happier without having to commute into town every day. So there's a shift away from the traditional office-based careers as well, right? So people who are at home, who are kind of enjoying this time, doing more of their hobbies, they're actually thinking, maybe I could make a business out of this, do what I love and make some money. So there's all these changes going on due to the working from home scenario. And one of the consequences of that is that, you know, when you're, as I said before, when you're ill, you can actually be ill, and it'll become unacceptable to go to work when you have a cold, for example. One of the challenges with working from home is that we can tend to become very serious and very focused. So we need to think of different ways of keeping fun in our lives. And that's one of the things we're going to need to think about for us, for our personal mental health. And this is the photo of what one of you spends 7.5 hours a day doing, right? One of the trends that we see is there's going to be another shift in sartorial standards. So dress code is becoming less of a requirement. Even though Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, did wear a suit the moment he'd come out of hospital to make his thank you video, in most cases, you're not going to be expected to wear your suit when you come on a Zoom call or a WebEx call, for example. And this is driven not only by working from home, but also the fact that the green economy that we're becoming more conscious of is meaning that fast fashion is decreasing. It's less of a growing market. So the point with that, though, is when we dress up, we will really dress up and make something of it. So look, those are 5 trends that we see coming that you would want to factor in as you move forward through lockdown into a new kind of world that, to be honest, none of us really knows what it's going to look like and what's going to have changed. But this is the best information we have. So I thought I'd share that with you, and I hope you found that useful. Now, before we go into questions, I'd like to give you 3 gifts, and they're all free. The first is the imposter syndrome quiz that I mentioned. So you can take a picture of that QR code or use the QR code on screen there if you'd like to do that. Or you can take a website link, which is https://bit.ly imposter test. And that'll help you to really understand what it is that gets in the way of your success. There are 6 types of imposter, and it will help you identify your specific kind of imposter, tell you where it came from, and how you can start to overcome it. Give you some tips and tools for starting to overcome your imposter syndrome. The second thing I'd like to offer you is an opportunity to support each other while we're doing good. I find that many of us feel challenged in this environment. We might become unfocused, and we certainly might feel more lonely than we're used to. And what I want to offer you is a chance to catch up and share the day, let off steam, re-energize, and get some new ideas in the Authentic You Cafe. And at the same time, do some good. You know, we're asking for donations to support women who are affected by their current situation so that they're able to feed their families. And what you would do there is you'd bring your own drink. If you like, you'd bring a meal. And there's a small entry fee, £2.97, the cost of your favorite drink, or £9.97, the cost of your meal and drink, or if you want to entertain a few people while you're at it in this virtual world, it's £24.97. And how we do this is we meet on Mondays from 9 till 10 in the evening for a Monday nightcap, and we meet on Thursdays 4 till 5 for a Thursday coffee catch-up. And it's just a chance, as I said, to unwind, to share. We're not going to do anything very demanding. We're just going to deal with our loneliness with those of us who feel lonely, deal with the challenges we're facing, and start to bring some focus and energy back into our lives. And all that money that's contributed through the Authentic You Cafe is distributed through the Women on Purpose Foundation Community Interest Company that will be helping women to feed their children and their families in times of need. So again, all you need to do if you'd like to benefit from that gift is to, again, scan the middle QR code or go to the bit.ly link, Authentic You Cafe. And finally, if you would like a complimentary strategy call with me, I'm very happy to get on the phone with you for 30 minutes and look through what's causing you to be disorganized or detached or demotivated or distracted so that you can increase your capacity for clarity, increase your confidence, be more courageous, and be more connected in, let's face it, what can be a very disconnected world. So if you'd like to do that, the gift is there. There's a QR code, and the bit.ly link is call-Ishreen. That'll take you to my calendar, and you'll be able to connect with me and book a time for us to talk. And if you'd like to talk to me about anything else, here are my contact details. Be very happy and would love to stay connected with you. And with that, I think, Jordan, we're going to open it up to some questions, yes?
Yes, that's correct. So for our attendees, obviously, if you have any questions, just raise your hand or message it directly to myself. But we have had one come in. So the first question is from Shao, and he's asking, what tips do you have to quieten down the voice or the inner saboteur with increased concerns on job security?
Yes. So the first thing I would recommend is to take that first gift and do the imposter syndrome quiz. That'll give you a good insight to what's at the source of the saboteur, because that's ultimately what we need to get at, right? And then there are some other strategies that you can use, one being really to look through what are your recurring patterns? What does that saboteur tell you? And make a list of those and just look through each of those and think about, is that really true about me? Where did that come from? And am I willing to hold on to it? What's it costing me holding on to this question, this saboteur question? And am I now ready to let it go? right? So that applies to any situation, but particularly if you're concerned about keeping your job in the future. Once you've let it go, what you want to start doing is filling it with possibility and opportunity. So you remember I gave you a tip about acknowledgement. Just really look at what you're good at, look at your strengths, and start to focus on and meditate on and reflect on what you're good at and what your value proposition is to your organization. Yeah. And if you do those three things, I'm sure your mindset will start to shift.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we have another question from Zhao. Obviously, really enjoyed your webinar. How can men be more supportive of the progression of women in this new sort of virtual environment that we're all in now?
Oh, that's fantastic. That's such a great, thank you, Zhao, for that commitment. So the first thing that women I work with at senior levels seem to want more of is feedback. And you know, they don't really mind if it's negative feedback. They just want feedback. They want to know how they're doing, whether they're doing well. And it's a part of their imposter, right? So it's a part of their lack of confidence. So it's really to look at how can I give feedback in a way that's compassionate and in a way that moves the action forward, right? So you always want to give your feedback with a recommendation of how to deal with it. The other thing is if you're in a sufficiently senior position, just start looking out for where the talent is in your organization. You know, in large organizations, we're very used to looking at the next layer down for promotion, for looking at the high potential talent. What you'll find with people who are at the borders, so who kind of don't belong to the mainstream, what you'll find is that talent doesn't always get to a level where you're looking for your high potential. So take some time to really understand the people in your organization and make sure that the directors and managers and everybody in your organization really is looking for talent and future talent, because they may be way down in the organization hierarchy and you might not be looking there. And you might find some of your best leaders stuck there because they don't have the confidence or they don't know enough about the organization's culture and ways of communicating and working in order to progress. So just, you know, take some time to look beyond where you would normally look for the talent.
Thank you for that answer. We don't have any more questions. We've just got thank yous. Thank you for sharing your insight. Thank you for your best practice. So I guess, Ishreen, if you have any sort of parting words for the attendees, or just on my side, thank you so much, obviously, for sharing that. It's proved very useful for our attendees, but myself personally as well.
Fantastic. No, it's just been a real joy to be with you for this hour, and thank you for your questions and thank you for engaging. I run webinars in a fairly interactive way, not the traditional way, so thank you for participating, and certainly I hope that we will connect going forward, so please stay in touch with me.
Perfect. Yeah, you've just got more thank yous coming in. Thank you so much. This was brilliant. Thank you so much. So the attendees definitely had a great time. And thank you to everyone who joined in. And as mentioned at the beginning, the automatic email will be sent with this recording so you can enjoy it again. So I hope you have a great Wednesday afternoon. And thank you again for joining.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.